Well, I've been thinking this week about hearing and listening, and last night my husband gave me the perfect sort of example of what had been on my mind. He had gone to play some pickup soccer, which he just loves. He just gets so much fun out of this, and he comes home and he's just really going to tell you all about it. And I don't soccer. I don't sports. It means very little to me. I love you, and it's clearly important to you, and I want to care, and I try to listen, but, as things are being described in great detail, they're sort of, that sort of, I'm making an effort, but it means nothing to me. And if you caught me 5 minutes later, I could tell you that he was happy, that he had a good time. I don't remember any of the details about who kicked what where or who, no. I don't know, none of that. It just doesn't mean anything to me because it doesn't pertain to me. And so I can retain sort of the gist, but the details, they wash over, right? And we all have those experiences where we have a desire to listen and to hear, but what's coming at us just doesn't seem to connect in a way that's going to allow us to take anything substantial away from it. And I wonder about Jesus' audience in the synagogue that morning as they are listening along and smiling because here's this Jesus. I remember he was such a cute little 3-year-old, and he always came to church school, and he really did what we would hope for, and he's turning out okay. This is really good. We have a piece of this. We owned this kid, and he's turning out all right. That's our hope. Right? We long for the day when Alexa comes back and we can say, wow, look what God did. Aren't we so grateful we got to be a part of that? And so it might be that what Jesus is saying is less interesting than Jesus, right? Here he is. And it might be that what he reads is one of those things that has folks kind of smiling and nodding and saying, oh, yeah, that's always a nice part to hear, right? It's familiar. It sounds nice, but it doesn't have much to do with me here in Nazareth today. That's an old prophecy, and those are old promises, and they remind us of our history, but, it's pretty far away from right now. It sounds good, I suppose, but it doesn't make a big connection because the idea of a year of jubilee when foreclosed land goes back to those peasant farmers, when debts are forgiven and everyone starts fresh, sitting here in Nazareth today, I have not seen that in my lifetime. And my parents have not seen that, and their parents have not seen that. It does not feel real tangible. Everything, those words that sound so pretty, maybe just feel a little hopey-changey, right? Just kind of nice, but I'm not connecting with it. And I suspect that I wonder about them because I wonder about us, and how that can be for us as we come to worship and we come to Scripture and we come with our good intentions and our desire to find Jesus there and to connect, but sometimes the words just wash over us. They're stories of people and places and cultures that are pretty distant, and they're using language that doesn't necessarily connect. It's beautiful. It's lovely, good news to the poor, sight to the blind, captives going free. That's great, but I'm not a captive. Those were the Israelites thousands of years ago dealing with their history of being a conquered people. And this idea of a year of jubilee, well, if it felt far away to someone in Nazareth, now it seems even more ridiculous. And scholars look, and they're just not even sure if God's people ever followed up on this really explicit command of God. Even right away, if it ever happened with any regularity or sincerity. It's pretty distant. And so listening to Jesus this morning might feel like someone has pulled out one of those nice little religious poems that you clip and keep in your desk, and sometimes someone hands it to you and go, oh yeah, that's sweet. A little nostalgic, but it's a scrap of someone else's memory. You might retain the sense of it, but it isn't something that the details connect with you in a way that you walk away with actually something. Because here's the truth. Jesus' words this morning are full of grace and good news and comfort, but they only mean something if you think you need them, right? And in our culture and our community, we are pretty comfortable. We may not need comforting, or at least we think we don't, right? Here in America, we are the winners of wars. We live in the first world where there is enough, right? And we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We are free people. I am free. I am not a captive to anyone. I can buy what I want. I can say what I want. This is our story. Our story is that there's fairness and equality under the law. Our story is that we have the best resources and the best minds, and we have the solutions to all the problems once we just work them out. That is our story as a country, the story we tell ourselves. And Valparaiso, we have a story too, right? We tell ourselves the story of being the community in Northwest Indiana that's got it together, right? Parks and bike paths and neat subdivisions, good restaurants, arts and events and low crime and a skating rink. And we're investing in our schools, right? This is a community that is okay. That's our story, right? We're fine. We're supposed to have it together, to keep up with the Joneses and to present a pleasant and a successful face to the world. And if you feel like you've never had any pressure to do any of that, I am impressed, because it doesn't feel like that's what our culture wants. And blind? Oh, we are not blind, right? Not at all. Listen to the politicians. They see real clearly, don't they? Read the newspapers, or be really brave and find out what your family has to say on social media. We are all sure that we see very clearly, aren't we? And maybe you, like me, have had a few relatives who you've wished that you couldn't hear their clarity quite so well. We all see exactly what needs to be done. The solutions are right there. We just need to get this person elected and that law passed, and maybe convince that other government over there to work the way we do, because we've got the answers and we see it clearly. We can keep that up for a while anyways. And maybe in the media when we yell loud, it's easy, but it doesn't last, does it? My mother-in-law talks about having cataract surgery. She said, I thought I was doing all right. And my doctor said, no, you really ought to have cataract surgery. And she said, well, I listened to my doctor. She said, but I could see fine and I could drive and I didn't really see the need, but you listen to your doctor. And so they do it one at a time. She had one eye done. And I remember talking to her the next day and she said, I had no idea how bad my sight had gotten. Now that she has one eye that works and one that has not yet been fixed, she can compare and she can say, I had no idea. It crept up on me slowly. It wasn't this big one moment where I could identify it and say, oh my goodness, I've been struck blind. So I was fine. And now I can see. Now I can tell the difference. And of course, once that second one was done, she just proceeded onward into a life of increased clarity. We think we can see. And if we think we can see, then this isn't good news for us at all. But once we understand, then this news of Jesus is what we need. Did you hear that line in the gospel? It says, everyone's eyes were fixed on Jesus. They're drawn to him. They're caught with him. Not just the words, but the presence of this person in front of them. They've met someone who changes everything about how you see the world. When your eyes are fixed on Jesus, you start to understand that you weren't seeing so well before. When your eyes are fixed on Jesus, you start to see the way Jesus does, and you start to recognize that maybe you are part of the poor. Maybe poverty has to do with money, and maybe poverty has to do with poverty of spirit and of morals and of life. Maybe you begin to notice that you are blind because Jesus sees people that we just walk on by, and Jesus sees problems that we just paper over. And when our eyes are fixed on Jesus, we start to notice too. And when our eyes are fixed on Jesus, we notice that, well, we are captive. We are absolutely captive. We say it as we confess our sin in the beginning of worship, that we are captive to sin and cannot free ourselves, that we are captive to our desires, that we are captive to our systems, that we are captive to our habits and our behaviors and our patterns and our prejudices. We start to see. And we even start to see the truth that we have captives, right? We have people that our power diminishes. We have people who made my clothing, who wove the fabric. I don't know where, but I'm sure they weren't paid as well as they could have been. There are people who I would rather not forgive, because it's easier if I can hold that over you, isn't it? Then I have a little power. We have captives, don't we? And we have something to do with other people's poverty. And when our eyes are fixed on Jesus, we can see it more clearly and we can respond appropriately. Sometimes we don't respond appropriately. Next week, we're going to find out what happens when our eyes are fixed on Jesus and he tells us the truth and we don't want to hear it. It doesn't end well. But we have been given this opportunity that Jesus is here in front of us now, today. He says, today, this scripture has been fulfilled. Not sometime at the end of time, not when America gets it all right, not when God's people finally listen and obey perfectly, not when we've all got it together. Today, this is fulfilled in your hearing because I am here. Where Jesus is the year of the Lord's favor. Where Jesus is, captives are released. Where Jesus is, the blind begin to see and the oppressed taste freedom. And Jesus says, now, here, today. And that's what we said for Alexa this morning. Today, now, and here, Jesus is present. And that candle, that sign of the light of Christ that goes with her as she goes out from this place, is that sign that God is never going to fail her. That Jesus' presence now, here, today, goes with him out into the world, doesn't it? Jesus left that synagogue and started showing up uninvited in all sorts of places that he might not have expected to been welcome. He starts talking to people he shouldn't speak with. He starts healing people he shouldn't even be touching. Jesus goes everywhere. And Jesus goes all the way to the place we hope and pray that we never have to go, which is suffering and death. And Jesus goes there and says, where I am, there is freedom. Even there in death, there is freedom and there is life and the year of the Lord's favor. And so we are invited this morning to fix our eyes on Jesus. We have a minute or two of a moment of silence after our sermon, and this is our time to just go ahead and close your eyes and fix them on Jesus. Whether that is a physical representation or a memory or a confidence in his presence that goes with you, fix your eyes this morning on Jesus. Jesus who says, today and here, this scripture is fulfilled. Today and here, I am bringing you the freedom that calls you into new life. Today and here, I am bringing you good news. Today and here, I am releasing you so that you can go set others free. Thanks be to God.